President Claudia Sheinbaum said today that Mexico could retaliate with tariffs of its own after U.S. President-elect Donald Trump threatened to impose 25% import duties on Mexican goods.
We have decided to respond with tariff and non-tariff measures, which I will announce in Plaza Publica next Sunday. This is by no means the purpose of starting an economic or trade confrontation, which is unfortunate. And unfortunately,
however, she added her government will focus on the existing 25% U.S. tariffs on imported autos, steel, and aluminium, while accelerating domestic production to safeguard jobs and reduce imports.
On April 3rd, 2025, the White House shocked the industrial world with a far-reaching 25% tariff on vehicles and auto parts arriving from Mexico. And to make matters darker, whispers reveal that a national emergency had been declared just the day before, on April 2nd, laying the legal groundwork for this sudden strike. One signature and the consequences begin unfolding at lightning speed. Within a mere 24 hours, border shipments plummet by nearly half. The deeply interwoven system that used to shuttle frames, engines, and electronics back and forth between American and Mexican facilities starts to sputter. Corporate boardrooms buzz with panic as chief financial officers scramble to decipher these impacts. Officials from the Richmond Fed warn that regions deeply embedded in North American manufacturing could be hit the hardest. Meanwhile, factory managers stand stunned on either side of the border, watching their just-in-time pipelines freeze in real time. Mexico's largest auto plants in Toluca and Nuevo León send workers home without the faintest clue when operations might resume. Consider how quickly an integrated trade network can slip into chaos. Yes, the official purpose is to encourage more made-in-the-USA production.
What we're going to be doing is a 25% tariff on all cars that are not made in the United States. If they're made in the United States, there's absolutely no tariff.
Yes, the politician's stump speech promised to bring jobs back home. But can such a wide-ranging crackdown achieve that lofty goal when the immediate result is paralyzed assembly lines, massive shipping disruptions, and laid-off employees? No one expected the shock to come this fast. Yet that pen stroke changed everything, far more than any campaign advertisement ever hinted. Behind the scenes, a Yale analysis claims these tariffs alone could push car prices upward by more than $6,000. Sticker shock ripples through dealerships from Detroit to Dallas. Although the White House touts national pride, Americans everywhere suddenly realize they may soon pay drastically more for the very brands their parents and grandparents once considered affordable.
And I think for consumers, one of the important things is when you look at the Monroney sticker on the vehicle as you go into the dealership, you're not going to see a line item that says this car is 10% more expensive or 15 or 25% more expensive than it was.
I think largely yes. Obviously, it will depend on, if you're buying a foreign imported car or a domestically produced one, but even ones that are built in the US or Canada and Mexico, which remember, ostensibly, we still have a free trade deal with them, but they are going to get tariffed under this plan as well.
Meanwhile, across the Rio Grande, shock and dread grip Mexican families as assembly lines grind to a halt, and laid-off workers wonder if they should seek labor elsewhere, possibly even across the border that just slammed them with new barriers. Factories in both nations rely on each other's components, forging and refitting parts that crisscross countless times before a vehicle is complete. Ripping these crucial threads disrupts the entire tapestry. The politics of it all overshadow any measured economic logic, and an intense controversy unfolds in Washington's halls and on social media. The tension is palpable, the discomfort only heightened by the memory of smaller trade skirmishes in past decades. How could a single signature on a policy trigger such widespread havoc? And is there still time to avoid a deeper rift? Within days, unthinkable production halts begin hitting major automakers. For instance, insiders note massive reliance on Mexican components. Some factories might source nearly 40% of their parts from across the border. Suddenly, no parts means no cars, and entire factories must suspend operations. Economic analysts warn that even without retaliatory measures from Mexico, this tariff alone could slice a noticeable fraction off the annual GDP, reflecting a domino effect that keeps gathering momentum. The CFOs of large corporations, once calm, are now ranking trade policy turbulence as their top concern, triple the number from the previous quarter. Alarm bells ring in the industrial corridors of Michigan, Indiana, and Ohio. Mexican facilities in Toluca and Puebla slam the brakes on scheduled shipments, uncertain whether they can afford the tariffs or if they should await new negotiations. Freight companies struggle to recalculate routes, fees, and timelines. Long rows of trucks line up at the border with detained stickers plastered across cargo compartments. Even inside the automotive plants themselves, tension permeates every break room. Workers arrive to half-finished car frames stuck on frozen assembly lines. Jobs are on the line. The workers can sense it. This crisis didn't arise from a lack of consumer demand for cars. It came from a border blockade, from a policy that severed the vital arteries of trade. And now, hundreds file for unemployment amid a swirl of rumors that the layoffs could climb into the thousands. One heart-wrenching story comes out of a factory in Toluca. An assembler named Jose unemployed overnight, pondering whether to head north to feed his family, even though his future across the border now seems more uncertain than ever. Across the Rio Grande, the tension echoes in American factory towns once reliant on smooth cross-border flows. Everyone's left wondering, can decades of carefully calibrated supply chains rebuild if abruptly severed? In the days that follow, the economic toll climbs with brutal speed. Experts estimate these tariffs may cost the U.S. automotive sector anywhere from $12 to $16 billion each year. For families, the situation looks grim. Already, the average sticker price on a new vehicle creeps up by thousands. Some fear a $6,000 jump in the near future.
I mean, even when you're talking about a U.S.-made car, up to 50% of the parts that go into that car are coming from overseas. And most analysts agree this is going to cause the price of a car to go up anywhere from $6,000 to as much as $10,000 or $12,000, depending on the model and the make.
Consumers feeling the pinch hesitate. Dealers see orders canceled, showrooms clear out, replaced by frustrated buyers and anxious managers. Are we really preserving American jobs or just pushing prices well beyond what many folks can afford? But the blow doesn't end with city factories and suburban car dealerships. Rural America braces itself for the next round of fallout. In the last 72 hours, Mexico threatens new agricultural countermeasures aimed at U.S. corn, pork, and dairy producers. A two-pronged approach reminiscent of a smaller dispute from 15 years ago that cost American farmers $2 billion. Trade watchers warn that Mexican retaliation might strike within 30 days if no resolution is found.
Now, the Mexican president, Claudia Sheinbaum, has suggested that her country could retaliate against tariffs proposed by the U.S. President-elect Donald Trump with its own import taxes.
Farmers from Iowa to Wisconsin see eerily familiar storm clouds, recalling a previous era when their livelihoods were caught in an escalating tariff war. How much can small communities endure before anger boils over? Meanwhile, congressional representatives from both parties feel the heat. Town halls fill with worried voices, auto workers, soybean growers, truck drivers. A wave of phone calls to Washington demands clarity and relief. Some lawmakers call for immediate negotiation and partial exemptions, while others double down on the tough-on-trade stance. Tensions flare between local and national agendas, polarizing an electorate already stretched thin by economic uncertainty. All the while, top economists caution that if these developments continue, American exporters could bleed revenue, and domestic prices may only climb higher. While Washington roars with heated proclamations, Mexico's president, Claudia Sheinbaum, takes a measured tone in public. She states that Mexico remains open to dialogue and resolution under the guidelines set by the new USMCA, established just a few years prior.
As much as possible, we would like to avoid imposing reciprocal tariffs. I'll tell you why. Cars have their own characteristic, but particularly on steel and aluminum. The increase of 25%, which we won't rule out, but we prefer continuing with talks before any other measure.
She dispatches her economy minister to Washington, hoping to secure exemptions for parts already deemed compliant with existing trade rules. But behind the press conferences, real tensions simmer. Political hawks in Mexico urge immediate counter tariffs on American goods, including steel, pork, and critical agricultural imports. Memories of prior trade tensions loom large, fueling calls for action, and fast. In the background, Mexico also gets busy diversifying its partnerships. Whispered discussions with Canada, the European Union, Brazil, and Japan accelerate in a matter of days. Observers say the EU stands ready to offer fresh trade deals, anxious to exploit this rift between the U.S. and its neighbor to the south. Major global automakers, including Volvo, ramp up production in Nuevo Leon, seeing an opportunity to claim market share while American players wrestle with supply snags. These tariffs, meant to protect U.S. employment, appear to be driving investment away from longtime American strongholds. The irony is thick. Meanwhile, it's a paradox that Mexico, often cast as the sidekick in North American trade, suddenly holds powerful bargaining chips. Possibility of retaliation on agricultural exports, coupled with expanding alliances overseas, creates a new power dynamic.
Para ello, el día de ayer, en mi comunicado, le propuse al presidente Trump que establezcamos una mesa de trabajo con nuestros mejores equipos, los de seguridad y también los de salud pública. No es con la imposición de los aranceles como se resuelven los problemas.
The White House, having taken a firm stand, shows no intention of reversing course, at least not publicly. But behind closed doors, some advisors worry that chasing away cross-border partners might backfire in the long term. Will calm negotiators prevail, or will popular anger force both governments toward an all-out trade war? The countdown to a potential retaliatory strike ticks ever closer, and neither side wants to appear weak. As emotions run high, the USMCA itself starts to look shaky. Investors doubt that North America's trade framework can survive relentless political strain. Shares in automotive firms linked to cross-border supply chains tumble. Legal battles loom, with companies from both nations asking if existing contracts can be upheld. Some quietly examine the nuclear option, pulling out of the region altogether and shifting production to friendlier markets. It may be slow, but the exodus has already begun in tiny increments, hinting at a broader realignment if the standoff endures. Across the Midwest, battleground states live with the mounting sense that thousands of auto jobs could vanish speedily. Even more daunting, roughly 8 million positions across the U.S. depend directly or indirectly on trade with Mexico. If all these positions hang in the balance, how far can patriotic rhetoric carry voters before they look for alternatives? Families once confident in stable positions at local plants now question the future. Politicians who promised job security face a brewing firestorm of criticism, as anxious parents and young professionals watch local economies degrade. Mexico's Chamber of Commerce weighs in, criticizing the tariffs as failing to solve underlying challenges of modern manufacturing. They urge broader cooperation and caution that brand new alliances are waiting if the U.S. chooses to maintain a hard line. Meanwhile, multiple states in Mexico push for targeted responses that would mirror prior retaliations. Past conflicts cost the U.S. billions, and nobody wants a repeat unless negotiations truly fail. As we approach an unprecedented standoff, the sense of betrayal cuts both ways. If the United States can abandon its closest partner, some observers ask, what message does that send to the world? Already, rumors swirl that foreign automakers are swooping in to claim discounted deals in Mexico. The tension is thick and the stakes are enormous. The collision between nationalistic trade policy and economic interdependence threatens to crack open the bedrock of a partnership that has underpinned American life for decades. Families, businesses, investors, and farmers alike watch the clock, bracing for the next wave of official statements or punitive measures. One wrong move could tilt the delicate balance into full-scale trade war. Is there time for cooler heads, or has that ship already sailed? In this fragile hour, the sight of those idle assembly lines and stalled big rigs near the border stands as a powerful, sobering symbol. A once seamless network of shared prosperity now lies threatened by a single policy swipe. The endgame hangs in the balance, and with every passing day, the trust that has long anchored this cross-border alliance slips further away. Whether a resolution emerges or another wave of retaliations comes crashing through, one truth rings unavoidably clear. The stability of North American trade and the livelihoods of millions depends on what happens next.